The Straw Hats arrive at a volcanic island that does not show on the New World log pose before they receive a distress call from someone who is being attacked by a samurai. Zoro, Robin, and Usopp go with Luffy and the group wanders the area seeing the whole place on fire and wonders what happened, but their exploration is suddenly cut short when they encounter a dragon looking hungrily at them. At Raijin Island, Smoker and Tashigi intercept the distress call that Luffy picked up and order the G5 Marines to set a course for Punk Hazard. Luffy and Zoro start fighting the dragon, which is shown to be able to speak and breathe fire. Luffy rockets up to the dragon's back, discovering the presence of a pair of legs, and Zoro takes the opportunity to jump into the air with Usopp's trampoline and decapitates the dragon. Meanwhile, Nami, Chopper, Frankie, Brook, and Sanji are all knocked out due to a sleeping gas and are abducted by men in hazmat suits. Luffy succeeds by pulling out the legs, making everyone think that he killed the man. However, the legs run away trying to look for a Shichibukai and Luffy follows before he gets stuck with them. Elsewhere, the Straw Hats who were captured are in a prison cell and shown to a gaseous figure known as Master who is very interested in Frankie. They wake up minutes later in a cell and try to figure out how to get out. They then see a man's head which was cut into pieces and put it together as it tells them that his body was cut by a warlord and he feels shameful. They then approach a lake that separates the fiery and icy halves of Punk Hazard. Luffy befriends a centaur and the people of Punk Hazard who work for the Master spot Luffy's group and tell the Harpy girl about them. The man finds out who they are and says that he doesn't want to go with them because he hates pirates and explained that the reason he went to the island was to find his son. Frankie then blasts a hole and they escape running into a room filled with giant children. Luffy races against the centaur he befriended as Usopp contacts Brook who tells him that the others were captured aside for him as he was a skeleton. The centaur gets a call from his comrades and they tell him that Luffy is the enemy, which leads to a fight with Robin joining in as well. The Straw Hats notice that the Den Den Mushi the centaurs were using had CC written on it as the Master gets news that the Straw Hats escaped and that one of them can shoot laser beams like the pacifistas. He also learns that they are in the biscuit room with the giant kids and finds out that the Marines are arriving, so he tells his men to send out poison gas to stop them from landing. The G5 men start suffocating from the gas, so they put their masks, with Smoker explaining that the island was the battleground for Akiji and Akainu when they fought for the title of Fleet Admiral 2 years ago. The Straw Hats find a group of children and the samurai head scares them off before the hazmat suit guys arrive and attempt to capture them. Meanwhile, Usopp makes a boat so they can cross the river to the frozen side of Punk Hazard just as the centaur whom Luffy beat earlier tells his boss about where they are heading. Back in Nami's group, the children beg her to save them as they had been on the island for over a year and want to go home. Nami's unwillingness to abandon the kids convinces the others to rescue them as they fight off the enemy. The Marines attempt to reach the snow side of Punk Hazard and shoot to make a path. As Brownbeard attempts to attack the Straw Hats, Chopper, Sanji and Frankie continue to fight off the hazmat suit guys and find out that they look like sheep. Brook is fighting off against the samurai's torso and gets scared when he doesn't talk back and uses two-sword style against him, causing Brook to run away. One of the hazmat men warns the Master that G5 is almost at shore and Trafalgar Law, who is with the Master, says he will handle them. G5 finally reach the shore and Smoker rang the doorbell to Vegapunk's lab room until Law opens and the G5 Marines get scared. Tashigi claims he is now part of the Shichibukai, but Smoker says he is not allowed to be at Punk Hazard and Law replies that they are not allowed either. As Chopper and Nami step inside a cold room with frozen people, Brownbeard and the centaurs attempt to kill the Straw Hats, but Zoro cuts the cannons and Luffy deflects the rest as they paddled their way to safety to avoid being sunk. Brook runs away from the samurai's torso and sees it get caught in a big snowball, which starts to roll downhill towards the lake. Smoker and Tashigi play a transmission from earlier in which the centaur states he is at Punk Hazard to Luffy. Law claims that the message didn't come from there and the Marines tend to forge messages and transmissions to catch pirates and wanted people. The Straw Hats and the children arrive outside and see Law, Smoker and Tashigi, who orders G5 to go after them. Law states he won't allow the Marines to escape and lifts the Marines' ship with his Devil Fruit ability, Room Tact. He and Smoker then prepare to fight, as the latter tells his men they cannot handle Law's devil fruit. As Brownbeard's troops prepare to attack the others again, Zoro gets ready to destroy their bullets, but gets dragged down by sharks only to be saved by Brook and defeats Brownbeard's shooters. Having realized that the Straw Hats were fighting them, he orders an immediate retreat, only to be stopped by the group. The Straw Hats who rescued the children attempt to go back into the building to find another escape route, but their hearts get switched by Law, making them have each other's bodies. Law then returns his attention to the Marines and destroys their ship. The G5 attempt to contact headquarters, but he takes away all their den mushi too. Smoker fights Law and warns his men to stay back, and Tashigi, who was feeling useless in the situation, attempts to strike the warlord and gets promptly bisected. Soon after, Smoker steps in and takes on a fight with Law, and back at Luffy's group, the beaten centaurs talk about how they underestimated the Straw Hats and how they took Brownbeard with them. While they contemplate on that, the other group ride Brownbeard to the mysterious building that Brook saw. In the lab, a hazmat guy tells the mysterious Smoke Man that Law and Smoker were in a fight and that the children escaped with Nami's group, and that Smoker saw the children. The man became very angry, but know that if he tried to kill Smoker, the Navy would think that something was up. Just then, the harpy that Usopp saw, Monet, informs him that the pirates they captured were the Straw Hats and that Luffy's group beat Vegapunk's dragon and the centaurs and were on their way to the facility. Back at the main entrance to the facility, Smoker and Law are still fighting as the G5 are watching and putting themselves back together outside Law's bubble. Smoker tells Law that he never trusted the warlords, and as he charges at him, Law rises a spiked stone from under him and Smoker gets jabbed before the latter pokes out his heart, causing the Smoker to collapse. Luffy sees Law and thanks him for the save 2 years ago before he noticed Smoker on the ground. Tashigi cries over his body and attempts to kill Law, but he switches their hearts. Meanwhile, the kids from the lab complain about the cold, so the samurai uses his devil fruit to give the kids and the Straw Hats some heat. Luffy's group then meets up with the others and Robin reveals that Law became a warlord 2 years ago, and the samurai explain that he was cut by him, before he reunites with his legs, while on the other side, Law meets up with Caesar Clown, who Smoker speculated was behind everything on the island. The G5 Marines discuss that Caesar Clown is probably behind the island and that the child abduction case in that area could be true, just as Caesar is dealing with a patient that he says needs to be healed, but he sends him to the gas chambers. Brownbeard is tied up and tells Luffy that Caesar and Law saved him and his men from dying from the poisonous gas and was given the ability to walk again, while on the other side, Smoker tells his men that Caesar was behind the failed experiment and not Vegapunk. Meanwhile, Caesar kills his patient with poisonous gas and plans on being the best scientist the world has ever known to surpass Vegapunk himself. As Zoro, Sanji, and Brook look for the samurai who had gone to look for his torso, the children then started to fall over in pain while asking for candy. Chopper, who had been testing them for any sickness, revealed that they had been given a highly addictive drug and were suffering from withdrawal. They attacked the Straw Hats, who couldn't fight back without injuring the children, until eventually Usopp put them to sleep. Back in the lab, Law gave Smoker's heart to Caesar, who had sent the Yeti Cool brothers to deal with the Straw Hats, as the brothers are then shown talking while Zoro, Sanji, and Brook lay unconscious. They then make their way to the destroyed lab where the Straw Hats and the children are. Monet tells Caesar about Law having some relation to Luffy, which makes Caesar mistrust, until Law reassures him. The Yeti brothers attack the cave and shoot Brownbeard before they took Nami, who is in Frankie's body. Luffy arrives and attempts to rescue her but fails, while Law is challenged by 2 of Caesar's men as he leaves and attacks them. As Chopper tells the others that Nami was kidnapped. Luffy and Frankie go after the brothers and defeat them, but when Frankie goes against Chopper's warnings and takes a rumble ball, he goes berserk and starts to chase Luffy. Meanwhile, Caesar notices Vegapunk's beam in Frankie's body and craves for it. After Luffy nearly falls into a trap, he faces the brothers and Frankie end up beating one of them before Luffy knock him out. The second brother tries to escape with Nami before Law appears and defeats him, and then proposes an alliance and take down a Yonko to survive in the new world. Luffy and Law agree on an alliance even though the rest of the Straw Hats disapprove. Law returns Frankie and Chopper back to their bodies while Nami ends up in Sanji's because he is far away. Law tells them that they can't go back once things start moving, for example capturing Caesar Clown who has the Logia-type gas fruit, and warns them that he is highly dangerous, therefore, they need hockey users to beat him. The Marines are continuing their fight against Caesar's men, and the three centaurs open the door and see a big glop of slime that seeps out poison gas. Caesar calls the monster Smiley and says that the Straw Hats and the G5 Marines are being used as test subjects for it. After getting back up and fighting Caesar's men, Zoro's group find the samurai's head and unfreeze him. They see Smiley far away, which is a chemical experiment that caused the explosion in Punk Hazard. Law and Chopper head to the lab where Caesar drugged his test subjects to experiment on them as Luffy, Frankie, and Robin arrive out of nowhere, surprising the Marines and Caesar's subordinates. Luffy declares that he will capture Caesar while Law deal with Monet, and Chopper tries to find an antidote. Tashigi and Smoker attack Luffy, with Smoker gaining an advantage until he uses Gear Second and tells Smoker to fight him later when he is at full strength. Back in the lab, the group see pieces of Smiley falling onto the stolen warship, and Frankie, not being able to find an entrance, uses his radical beam to make an opening. Back in the Burning Lands, Zoro, Sanji, Brook and the samurai see Smiley shooting pieces of itself across the lake. Caesar then appears on top of the lab, explaining that Smiley is weak against water, which is why it is shooting itself across the lake, when suddenly, Luffy jumps up and grabs him. Law tells Monet to take a walk with him while Chopper is left in the lab, and Luffy faces off against Caesar, who uses his gas robe attack, until he discovers that Luffy is immune to poison. Caesar then uses his gastonets and Smiley to injure, then knocks him out with an unknown ability before the others get knocked out as well. Law and Monet encounter a mysterious figure who causes Law to break down in pain and tells him that it has been a long time since they last met. Law's heart is crushed by the now called Virgo, who was sent along with Monet to watch over Caesar. He then gets knocked out by him as use a bamboo stick with him imbued with hockey. Caesar tells his men to tie up the Straw Hats and G5. Meanwhile, Chopper is looking for a way to cure the children. Zoro's group are waiting for Sanji to rescue the samurai's torso, as the latter uses hockey and realizes it is in a shark's mouth. He manages to escape before the gas consumes him, and the samurai reveals himself as Kiemon. He demonstrates his ability by cutting fire and by destroying the slime before he then attempts to find his son Momonosuke, and Zoro's group decides to aid him. Virgo reveals that he is the base commander of the G5 Marine base that take what they please, and when the citizens asked if they could look for their missing children, he revealed that the children were in fact kidnapped, and the Marines refused to help because they said Virgo looked over the missing reports and they all have died. As Nami and Usopp are dealing with children who are going through severe withdrawals, Caesar Clown appears and convinces them to go back to the laboratory by bribing them with candy. After Kiemon destroys so much of the slime, he decides to chase them back to the laboratory. Meanwhile, the others are introduced to both Virgo and Monet as the soldiers close all entrances to the laboratory, leaving the G5 Marines stranded outside to deal with Smiley. Virgo and Monet are still quite not sure what he is planning, and Smoker pieces it together that Virgo is responsible for the cover-ups in the New World. Law then states that Virgo was never really loyal to the Navy because he was originally a pirate all along, working for the notorious underworld broker Joker, who his real name is Donquihawks Doflamingo. As Luffy and Law remains captive in Caesar's lab along with the others, Zoro's group are still running from the slime monster who had finally transferred itself to the ice lands, causing all of its pieces to converge together. At the ruined lab, Usopp and Nami are confronted by Caesar, who mercilessly suffocates them but is interrupted by the revived Brownbeard, who demanded his crew back. However, Caesar beats him and orders to Monet to prepare to broadcast his special experiment to all known brokers to show them his weapon of mass destruction, and among the viewers were the two supernovas, Eustace Kid and Killer. Caesar orders his subordinates to make sure the kids don't escape again. However, Mocha begins to regain her senses, seeing them as monsters. He then revealed to the others that he made a deal with Law in the past to give his heart to him, and in exchange he will get to keep Monet's. He shows Law that Virgo is now in possession of his heart while he himself has Smoker's, but before he would torture him, Monet informs Caesar that the broadcast is ready. It is then shown that a very large candy is being offered to Smiley, which is a deadly weapon known as Shinakuni. As Zoro's group are being chased by Smiley, the poison beast see the candy and promptly swallowed it, ignoring the false heartfelt words from Caesar. He then laughs as everyone watching the broadcast sees the creature behaving strangely. The candy coat dissolves, revealing a special drug designed to convert the entire content of Smiley's body into a perfect weapon of destruction. In the process, Smiley dies, and in a sack of apples, one turns into a devil fruit. The beast's body transforms into poison gas, spreading quickly throughout the island, and its lethal power is demonstrated when Caesar's men are caught in it, being petrified before the eyes of the brokers and the captive Straw Hats. Zoro's team are seen desperately trying to outrun the approaching gas while Caesar moves his captives outside, dangling as the underworld brokers watched the video feed. Kid and Killer decided to ignore it for more important matters, such as forming an alliance between the Kid Pirates, on-air pirates, and the Hawkins Pirates. Law then decides to set his plan into motion and orders Frankie to blow a fireball at a destroyed ship, creating enough smoke to block the cage from being seen from outside. Law then breaks free, explaining that he switched the sea prism stones with fakes during his stay on the island, and proceeds to free the others and restoring Tashigi and Smoker in their own bodies. Meanwhile, Zoro and Nami's group are still running away from Shinakuni, and they manage to join up while escaping. Luffy's group enter the lab with the aid of Law, and they open the gate, allowing the G5 Marines to get in before Zoro and Kiemon effortlessly cut the gate open, getting everyone inside safely. The G5 Marines panickingly seals the hole back up as Shinakuni proceeds to spread throughout the island. After regaining their senses, the Marines turn their weapons towards the Straw Hats to arrest them. Law returns Nami and Sanji to their original bodies and explains to everyone present that they only have 2 hours to escape. He then continues by saying the only passage that safely leads out of the island is called R66. Smoker then orders Tashigi to take command of the men and rescue the children as he goes to confront Virgo. Meanwhile, Caesar is celebrating the deaths of his victims but notices that the cage has no solidified bodies. Zoro calls out to Luffy, reminding him that this is just the beginning of the new world and he mustn't let his guard down again, and Luffy complies as he plows through the sadder soldiers. Caesar, incensed with the humiliation that his prisoners escaped, orders the passage between Building A and B to be closed and Shinakuni to be let in to kill the intruders. Virgo, however, decided to take care of them himself. Chopper, who was eavesdropping, sneaks out and tries to find his way to the children within the lab as Luffy, Smoker, and Law were the first to cross the gate before it began to close. Shinakuni flows in, petrifying some Marines while the rest hasten their escape. The Straw Hats and most of the Marines got through the gate safety, but a few stayed behind to help Tashigi across. Caesar, angered that they survived, promised that no one will escape this lab alive. The Marines cheer as their beloved Vice Admiral Virgo shows up, but that soon turned to horror when he brutally assaulted them. Tashigi tries to defend them from him but was viciously struck down. That action was enough to cause Sanji to come to the rescue, claiming he heard her tears falling. The Straw Hats and Brownbeard head towards the end of the passage until the small dragon shows up and begins to attack them, while Brownbeard suggests to keep running. Chopper manages to run into Mocha, who was still hallucinating, and manages to defeat the soldiers trying to apprehend her and give her a sedative to calm her down. He then pleads for her help to prevent the other children from eating the drugged candy. Meanwhile, Luffy and Smoker are racing towards Building C, where Caesar angrily orders Monet to release the poison gas, only to turn around in shock of seeing Luffy fist buried in his stomach, who declared that he won't let Caesar escape again. As Sanji faces off Virgo, they soon realize that the gas have begun to enter. Meanwhile, Caesar tries to drain the oxygen in the area to kill Luffy but fails once he enters Gear 2nd and attacks with Haki, causing the latter to use an oxygen-made sword and fire bursts. Both Sanji and Virgo start running away from the gas, and during this fight, Law makes his way to Building D, where the SAD is made, and Monet decides to enter the fight to protect Caesar and reveals her snow abilities. The door closes on Section A, and it turns out Sanji is still alive as Virgo speaks with Doflamingo about Law. Monet shows off her snow fruit powers to Luffy, and Chopper keeps the drugged children busy so that Mocha can stop the drug. The rest of the Straw Hats are busy escaping Section B while Kiemon and Brook cut down the dragon. And at the same time, a little girl tells the two of Caesar men that Momonosuke entered the secret room and turned into a dragon. Luffy faces Monet and almost dies in the battle due to having his body frozen, but recovers and counters with Haki, thus making a hole in the floor leading to the garbage room where he falls to. Law prepares to attack the sad room, but is confronted by Virgo, who gives critical punches with his Haki-powered fists and bamboo. In the biscuit room, Monet prevents Mocha from fleeing with the candy until the Straw Hats arrive. Virgo is then confronted by Vice Admiral Smoker, who prepares to fight him. As they start their battle, Sanji, Tashigi, and the G5 are running through the torn B-block when a gas tank explodes, causing Shinokuni to be let in. Caesar instructs that the doors to C and D blocks be closed, driving everyone to the first floor of R block where a trap is ready to expose them to Shinokuni. He then makes a speech to his subordinates, saying that the poisonous gas bomb 4 years ago was Vegapunk's doing, and that he tried to stop him. However, in a flashback it is revealed that Caesar constructed the weapon himself, and when he was told to stop and banished from the science squad, he set it off. Luffy meets Momonosuke in the garbage dump of Block C. In a flashback, Momonosuke didn't want the candy Caesar gave out to the children and he got hungry, so he ate a devil fruit which turned him into a dragon. He then take off after his hunger caused him to hallucinate Doflamingo and fly off with Luffy hanging on. As Kinemon, Usopp and Brook look for C-stone handcuffs, Smoker continues his fight with Virgo and Chopper Group go after the children. Robin gets stabbed by Monet in the arm and Zoro decides to take her on. Mocha runs off with the candy and she thinks back when she and Sind are on a ship to escape from the poison gas. Caesar finds them later and tells them that his own son died from the gas, and he hoped to not see any more children do. Monet hopes to finish off the weaker Straw Hats because it is a strategic tactic and blocks the entrance with a snow wall until Zoro opens up a pathway. Luffy and Momonosuke both fall back down the chute as Caesar talks about how they'll be killed soon. As Sanji and the G5 Marines arrive, Monet uses her devil fruit powers and bites off their shoulder, causing them to panic, leaving only Tashigi, who stays with Zoro, to fend her off. Chopper Group come to Mocha the children's aid while Tashigi battles Monet alone after making Zoro stay out of it, due to believing through their past encounters that Zoro can't cut women. Monet continues her assault and almost breaks Tashigi's shoulder with her snow powers, but Zoro comes in and vertically splits Monet in half with a powerful one-sword style technique, shocking both her and Tashigi. She then tries to use one half of her body to attack Zoro from behind but is promptly cut down by Tashigi. At the bottom of the C building, Luffy barely manages to hold onto a small ledge and begins to climb out, carrying an unconscious Momonosuke up. As the kids manage to break through the Straw Hats, Mocha leave herself with no choice but to eat all the candy, much to Chopper's horror. Zoro and Tashigi run away from the poisonous gas while Luffy and Momonosuke finally got out and run towards their enemy. As Sanji and the G5 Marines continue to assist Chopper vaccinate the children, Usopp finds a door that leads to the room where Caesar and his subordinates are watching the Straw Hats. When Brownbeard confronts Caesar that he wants to get his crew back, Caesar drugs him to keep him quiet. He then orders his subordinates to get rid of Brownbeard and they fire at him, only for Luffy to arrive just in time and punches Caesar again. After getting back on his feet, Caesar tells Luffy Punk Hazard is not supposed to exist and nobody is supposed to know what happens, as Virgo covers up any information and the SAD production is run by Doflamingo. And SAD produces Smile, an artificial Zoan devil fruit belonging to one of the Yonko, who is forming an army of people with artificial fruits. Caesar challenges Luffy to dare pick a fight with such people, only for Luffy to throw another punch, telling him that he has been picking fights all along. Smoker continues his fight with Virgo as the Straw Hats, G5 and the children head towards building R66. Caesar's subordinates find Usopp and attempt to attack him, and Kinemon runs back to building B, believing the dragon he and Brook killed was Momonosuke. Virgo beats Smoker, but the latter manages to retrieve Law's heart and gives it back to him. He then imbues Haki onto his whole body and attempts to kill Law, but he cuts him in half along with the SAD and the island, telling Doflamingo that he and the Supernovas are going to be the leaders of the new era. The Straw Hats convince the children to run and they continue to escape the poison gas. Caesar tells his subordinates to release the poison gas into building R-66 and consumes it, becoming a big monster before going after his subordinates to intimidate Luffy, who after some pushback managed to defeat Caesar with Grizzly Magnum and sends him flying away. Chopper's group runs into Brook carrying the petrified Kiemon. They then alongside the others and Law make it to building R-66 where they prepare to leave the building. Doflamingo's subordinate named Baby 5 and Buffalo arrive via the latter's spin fruit powers, allowing him to turn any part of his body into a propeller, and attempt to rescue Caesar after contacting Doflamingo. Frankie begins to attack the two Donquihawks pirates, who retaliated with Baby 5 turning into weapons with her arms fruit powers and Buffalo launching her at their robot foe. Caesar regains consciousness and remembers he still possesses Smoker's heart and prepares to stab it. Inside Rumar, the Straw Hats and everyone else are waiting for their comrades to return with Mocha before riding the transport cart out of the collapsing building, and Momonosuke is alarmed to see his father petrified. In Dressrosa, Doflamingo sent his farewells to Virgo and asks Monet to activate the island's self-destruct, but as she reaches for the switch she feels her heart being stabbed and collapses, and at the same time Caesar Clown stabs the heart, believing it to be Smoker's. The Straw Hats feel the explosion of the sad room and then see Shinakuni on their trail. Law reveals his clever deception he played on the scientist, where he returned Monet's heart to Caesar without him knowing. At the tanker, Baby 5's missile girl attack failed to take down the Frankie Shogun, and their duel continues, whereas Buffalo contact Doflamingo explaining the situation. After confirming that the island wasn't destroyed as intended, Doflamingo decided to tend to the matter himself and flies over the sea towards Punk Hazard. Frankie sends them flying away with a general cannon, and the fight was interrupted with the arrival of the minecart filled with all of the lab escapees. Seeing that Law is allied with the enemy and that the odds are against them, the two decided to run out of Punk Hazard along with Caesar until Usopp and Nami stop them and succeed in capturing him back. Meanwhile, on a giant penguin, a mysterious man is wondering which direction leads to Punk Hazard. The Straw Hat Pirates and the Marines are about to enjoy a large dish prepared by Sanji, where it is revealed that Kiemon is still alive. Law removes the drug from the children and Momonosuke goes back to his human form. While the group celebrates their victory, Smoker talks with Law about him manipulating Luffy, but Law says that it is the other way around, as he revealed his goal to defeat Kaido with his help, but Luffy expressed his desire to defeat all four of the Yonko. After the feast, the Straw Hats alongside Law are about to set sail and leave while seeing the kids off. As Doflamingo spot Baby 5 and Buffaloes on a raft, he finds Law Den mushy and get in contact with him just as the latter reveal that they have Caesar, and since he can't produce Smile anymore, his business partner, Kaido, will kill him. Doflamingo tries to negotiate, but Law say that there is only one thing he can do, resign from being a warlord, making Doflamingo furious as he start cursing him. On Punk Hazard, Doflamingo appears from the sky and use Conqueror's Haki to knock most of the G5. He then has the rest kill each other, demanding the whereabouts of Law until Smoker steps into the fight and charge at him. On the Sunny, Luffy asks why they are going to Dressrosa, and Law states he has business to attend to. Back on Punk Hazard, Doflamingo is about to unleash the final blow onto Smoker, who is heavily injured, when suddenly Kazan appears and asks him to step aside as Smoker is his friend. Doflamingo prepares to finish Smoker off but is stopped by Kazan's ice, which freezes everything around the warlord, including himself. Yet he manages to break free, and after some talk, Doflamingo leaves with Baby 5 and Buffalo back to Dressrosa, as Kazan asks the G5 to treat Smoker. At the Thousand Sunny, Law tells some details about the recently formed pirate alliance, which makes some of them afraid of being targeted of a Yonko due to holding Caesar captive. Momonosuke is then introduced to the Straw Hats ship by Nami, which make the others jealous as they continue on their journey.